InYourHeadOnline.com. That's the place where the horsemen hang out with only the best. 1-inch biceps, Barbie, and Jack. They've got the answers. They've got the interviews. This is the place to be for wrestling news.
Ask if JJ agrees. We had Tully Blanchard on the show last week, as we've mentioned. And as with these days, it's usually a good babyface that will make a good heel for the wrestling product. Tully said that it was really the horsemen that made the babyfaces. Would you agree there?
Well, I think that you have to have the raw material to work with. And if you look at the history of the horsemen and the period of time, and you look at people like the American Dream Dusty Rhodes, you look at Magnum TA, you look at Nikita Koloff, you look at the Road Warriors, you look at Hansel Stone, Ronnie Garvin. Ole Anderson, after he was fired, was an instant opponent on the other side. You have some great wrestling talent. And I think we made those people look as good as they possibly could have. And Tully, and I'm not splitting hairs here because I think Tully was actually correct that a heel can do a lot to make a baby face. In many cases, they can make him or break him. And I think that's one of the things that made the Horsemen so successful, because we were not selfish as a group or individually. We gave a lot. And as I said in the book, sometimes that did cause a little bit of strain in some of the relationships between the Horsemen and the office, and probably more in particular Ric Flair. But then Ric Flair did that all through his career as a champion. That was his role, was to give, and managed to hold on to the title and leave town and come back and do it again. And that's really what the Horsemen did. But we were doing so with greater frequency and coming back with a lot of the same people. And for whatever the reason, the people almost like couldn't get enough of it. We would get our butts kicked and come back on TV and hopefully still have the championship belts that we somehow managed to hold on to. And we would embellish the truth and tell lies sometimes, and the people would then want us to get back in the ring and take another butt kick. And we made a good living and had a tremendous run of doing that and doing it very well.
We had Ricky Morton on. He said that someone who knows how to be a babyface is like a lost art. Would you agree there, or do you think maybe it's because they have people who don't know, people write it who aren't from wrestling, and they just don't really understand how wrestling is different from just a TV show?
I think that's true. I'm not saying that you have to be a wrestler, that it is a prerequisite, but certainly it's a tremendous advantage. And when you talk about baby faces that have been over and again withstood that test of time, and certainly one of the best near the top of the list would have to be Ricky Morton, and I say the same for Robert Gibson, the Rock and Roll Express. Ricky just people never got tired of it. There was something about him that they could sympathize with him when he was beaten down and when the heels were cheating to take an advantage. The fans, they believed in him, number one, that if he had a square chance, that if things were even, that he could come back and overcome whatever it was. And after all these years, Ricky's still out there on the circuit, and fans still come out to see him and support him. He's one of the all-time greats.
Definitely. Another thing you talked about in your book was the look. And you didn't just say, a lot of people say people don't have, the WWE look. They're not all muscular and stuff. But you mentioned you really need a array of looks. You think that's kind of lost now? Because pretty much everybody that comes to WWE has a certain look now. They all are, a big guy that's really cut up.
You talk to different people and they all express it in their own words, but if you really listen closely and kind of compare notes on everything that everybody said, it is a reoccurring theme. But there's a certain sameness to the look of virtually everybody. There's a similarity in the type of costumes and how they're designed, the music, the TV production has not changed radically. It has this, what I call a super slick look. And unfortunately, part of the price you pay when something is produced so well as a production, it loses some of its uniqueness in terms of the spontaneity of it. If you look at old footage from 20 years ago during the heyday of the Horsemen, you would see cameras, shots that were missed, or the camera would go off of the set and pick up something because a confrontation took place over here, and the fans sitting at home would immediately sense that, hey, I see the set, I see where the set ended, I see a chair, I see something back there that would not be normally part of the set, and I'm seeing this because something happened that shouldn't have happened. And I think we've totally lost that. And that was always part of the intrigue of wrestling, was the unexpected, the spontaneity of it. And that's been lost.
Yeah. Do you have a question on Incher?
Yes. In the book, you mentioned that you performed 2 ribs on people. I won't give it away. But did Terry Garvin ever find out that you put the lock on his back?
You know, I tried to remember, and I mentioned in there having dinner with Terry Garvin shortly after I joined the World Wrestling Federation to work in the front office, and Terry was instrumental in putting my name out there and paving the way for me and saying a lot of good things about me because we had worked together. And I really don't remember. One side of me says, certainly I was smart enough to know to never own up to it, because every night when I would go to bed, I would never know the next day when Terry Garvin would decide, I'm going to get even today. And he had the kind of sense of humor that getting even with him was a real production. I would like to think that he went to his deathbed with me actually never telling him that it was me.
What about Black Bart in the hat?
I have yet to see Black Bart. I have seen Ron Bass on a couple occasions down in Florida, and that's a little bit different situation. Black Bart was a wonderful person, a wonderful human being. He was so thankful for the opportunity that he had, and he worked very hard, and with whatever success he enjoyed, he never changed. He was always still the same, almost like a good down-home old country boy. And I had talked to him on the phone a few times, and recently he lost his wife, and it was something very sudden and unexpected, I think. And I'm hoping at one of these reunions somebody will bring him back, and I think I could go up to him and say, Bart, it was me, and here's $100 for that hat, and we all had a few laughs, and give him a big hug, because he really is a great person.
Yeah. Another thing I was thinking about when I was reading your book was you talked a lot about when you were the head of talent relations in WWE, and you would get blamed for things. And a lot of times now when you hear these guys who got fired recently from WWE, and they all blame John Laurinaitis, do you think maybe he's kind of the scapegoat, and he's getting too much of the blame because it's Vince McMahon's decisions to let these guys go?
I'm not there, and I can't speak factually,
right.
And I'm not friends on a personal basis with a lot of the guys that have left, but I know from my own experiences, and this is not to be defensive of John Laurinaitis, because I unfortunately don't know him all that well either. He was at WCW for a brief amount of time, and I really didn't get to know him. I know that he presents himself very well. He's very well spoken, carries himself well, and he was tailor-made for that type of position. But I also know on the other side that, and I can't imagine this has changed either, that every decision that's made at the World Wrestling Entertainment, Vince McMahon is either involved in the decision or certainly has knowledge of and supports it. And in my book, I say that Vince McMahon takes credit for everything that's good and takes no blame for anything that's not good, and goes to great lengths to distance himself.
Yeah.
So I would think in this case, maybe the truth lies somewhere in between. And again, I don't know how good a job John Laurinaitis is doing.
Right.
I do look at Jim Ross, who he replaced, and Bruce Pritchard was there for a short period of time after I left before Jim Ross stepped in. And Jim Ross was there for a long, long time, and he had other duties that I didn't have, which was he was a full-time announce talent in addition to everything else, and he wasn't carrying that kind of heat. So that's what tells me that the truth probably lies somewhere in between. Maybe John Laurinaitis stepped into a situation where he's filling some awful big shoes with replacement of Jim Ross, and yet I do factor in that Vince McMahon is involved in every decision.
Right.